When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With TwinSpires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with TwinSpires. And now you can race to victory with TwinSpires tournaments.
Welcome back to the TwinSpires Jury. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James Scully and Darin Zoccali. We're going to talk our best bets and fades of the week at Aqueduct, who's got a big card, including the Cigar Mile presented by TwinSpires. And then we've got Oaklawn Park, Turfway Park opening week, and Fairgrounds as well. So let's jump right in. And Darin, I will start off with you today. What is your best bet of the week?
Well, it's the best signal of the winter, in my opinion. The Turfway Park meet is underway, so I have to dive into the racing action there Saturday. And they've got a really good second-level allowance, race number 8, 6.5 furlongs on this program. I like High Front quite a bit here for trainer Steve Asmussen. This is a horse that has been facing substantially tougher competition of late. Determined Kingdom, who won that non-winners of 4 other than allowance, which is a condition that's essentially a stake race without a name. Determined Kingdom was on the outside looking in as a Breeders' Cup free entry, didn't get into the Breeders' Cup, ran there and won, ran behind a couple of good runners, a next out stakes winner up at Saratoga 2 starts back. So this is a gelded Son of Summer front that's really been tackling some tough competition. Now, the all-weather is certainly going to be a bit of a question mark because this horse has raced his entire career on turf. Sure, you usually imagine that turf does translate well to synthetic, but every horse is different, so I freely admit that is a little bit of an unknown here. But on class, on form, second race back off the form cycle, coming out of what I thought was an extremely difficult race at Keeneland, I think High Front is posted nicely here, can show speed, can rate, he's versatile. Just a lot of things that you like to see with a horse coming into this. So we're going to call High Front our best bet of the weekend.
Eric Asmussen doing really well this last week. He's 4 for 13, so certainly a good jockey to have there, and highest last race speed rating too for High Front.
And I've seen Summerfront mentioned before as like a sire to watch out for on synthetic tracks. He's had success. His offspring have at Turfway Park in years past. One little concern though about Asmussen over the last year, he is 0 for 8 going turf to all-weather tracks.
Yep, he is. Now, there's the Turfway is such a crazy track, especially at the start of the meet. There's certain angles that you can cling to. One of the ones that's been really good is horses coming from Keeneland have done extremely well there over the last several years in their first start. So we're going to hang our hat on that and hope that the class prevails.
James, what's your best bet?
I'm going to go with number 11, Think Big, in the 8th race at Fairgrounds Saturday. TwinSpires has a good offer for the late pick 5 at Fairgrounds this month, and I will single Think Big in his first turf attempt in race number 8. He's by a good turf sire in Twirling Candy, who sired a quartet of Grade 1 turf winners, and Think Big is out of a turf stakes winning dam. And he broke through. His first 4 starts came on the main track. He broke his main here. We'll see a Colonial in good fashion. The second time out with Ben Curtis aboard for Michael Stidham. Won convincingly here. Came back in I thought, a tough entry-level allowance at Churchill Downs. And didn't get off to a good start, but I thought he offered a sneaky run, a good finish to be 5th that day. And then his last race on the main track at Keeneland came at 2 turns. Think Big is a one-turn sprinter type, and like I said, he's got all this turf breeding. I'm going to look for him to make a good transition, and I'm glad to see him be reunited with Ben Curtis, who, like I said, was up on him in his lone win and was 4th by wins during the Fairgrounds meet last year.
Yeah, there were 2 horses that really intrigued me in this race. Think Big was one of them, and Drunk on Saki was the other. Both of them cutting back in distance. Drunk on Saki has gone on turf, has won on turf, but is going to be sprinting on the grass for the first time. And his sire, Yoshida, could run on just about everything. The dam side of that pedigree had a lot of turf in it. The dam was a winner, has produced a winner on the turf as well. And I almost picked Unleash the Power as my fade But then I figured, well, if you were going to have your best bet here, I would just kind of leave the race to you. But I'm in pretty much lockstep with you here. I was going to be taking a look at the 9 and the 11 as my two to key off of here.
Yeah, and Drunken Saki, I do agree with you. He's got a chance now that he's under the care of Dallas Stewart, I think, to get some proper management. I thought he won the opener of the Saratoga meet on the turf. Opening day, first race, Drunken Saki led wire to wire, won convincingly, and he was completely mishandled after that. I thought, throw him in these stakes races. Now he's been freshened, and he's coming back in a very practical spot on Saturday.
All right, well, I'm going to take it back to all weather, but go to Woodbine for my best bet, and it's the grade 3 valedictory. It's a hard one to say, okay? The valedictory, that's how you say it. And I'm going with number 8, Loose Wire at 4-1. This is a lightly raced 4-year-old, and 3 for 4 for his career for Kevin Attard, making his 5th career start, the lightest race of everyone in the field, but he's showing steady progression. He's a late runner. He's got a very solid closing kick, and he's bred for longer distances. He's by Street Sense out of an AP Indy mare, racing 1.5 miles in this grade 3. And he got a blast out at 1 16th, got up right at the wire to win, and breaking from an outside post, which is doing pretty well with these marathon distances at Woodbine. So I'm going to back the 4-1 price here for Kevin Attard. I feel like looking at the rest of the field, a lot of them have been racing on turf, and I just like the form of this horse and a decent price at 4-1.
Yeah, I'm actually a fan of these races. I'm a big marathon sprint. I mean, a marathon synthetic and marathon turf guy. I thought your horse was definitely live. I think obviously there's a couple of questions here with how does Get Smokin' perform going back over the synthetic as opposed to be the speed of the race. I thought English Conqueror was interesting coming out of some tough competition. He's run against horses like the Gray Wizard, like Silver Knot earlier this year. And Stone Age, who is a horse that was previously a grade 1 competitor, a marathon type, is going to be going over synthetic for just the second time in his career. They tried it going 1 16th earlier on this year, and it did not go well. But that was his first race back in 4 months, and he is in better form now. And I think that he is a bit of a wild card in here. It's a really fascinating and a race and a good betting race, I thought.
Yeah, I looked at English Conqueror too. That one intrigued me as well as a late runner and by English Channel, racing 1.5 miles. So certainly good pedigree there. But I don't know. I'm going to stick with the horse that's been racing on all weather. I think is kind of the angle I'm going with here. But certainly a chance to bet some bigger prices too. Well, let's move on to the horses we are fading at a short price. So James, who are you fading?
Well, I tabbed a Stidham and Curtis horse in the 8th race at Fairgrounds, but in race number 7, number 5, Maycox Bay is the 2-1 morning line favorite for Stidham and Curtis, and he is going to be my fade of the week. This is a horse that he's unraced since January, and back in January, he won a off-the-turf race at Fairgrounds by 10 lengths, and it was really I thought a suspect group of rivals. I went back and looked up a couple of those horses behind him. More gauge of his ability was his 2 starts back, where he was entered in 1 16th entry-level allowance at Fairgrounds. And even in this race, Maycox Bay was basically crawling along on slow fractions, having everything his own way on the front end. He had a similar trip when he broke his maiden in the mud, but in his other starts, where he hasn't been able to control the early tempo, he hasn't run as well. And I just think that he's coming back in a spot against several rivals that, have not only a recency edge, but taking that last performance number out of the equation, because that number looks like a little bit of an anomaly to me. At least a few of his rivals are just faster based on numbers. So I think Maycox Bay, that last race, is a little bit phony on paper, and I think he may need a race back in a tough spot like race 7 on Saturday. So he's my fade of the week.
I like it. Darin, what do you think?
Yeah, I would fade this horse too. The horse off nearly a year. They have to avoid letting him get on a loose lead, which is a little bit of a concern here. If there is a lively pace scenario, though, I thought Chrome Baby was definitely the horse to beat here. So if Maycox Bay is really going to be half the price of Chrome Baby, I would definitely be wagering against the chalk in this spot.
Yeah. And Darin, what's your fade?
Well, huge day of racing at Aqueduct. The first stakes on the card is the Grade 3. Go for Wand for the older fillies and mares in race number 4. I don't like a cult here. I think a cult is going to get overbet coming out of that second place effort behind Idiomatic, just because of the company that she's kept. When you get beat 6.5 lengths, it's one of those races where, it's almost like anybody could have been second to Idiomatic that day. I know this filly was, but I just think this is a race where I would much rather have a horse like a movie Moxie who's moving in the right direction right now. Ain't Broke is coming in off a substantial layoff. There is a lot of speed in this race. I think you could even take a look at Sheeta Beauty, who's coming off of a very impressive win at Keeneland. Granted, was with the benefit of Lasix that day and now is losing Lasix. But if a cult is going to be favored in here, she's 0 for 4 on the year. She hasn't won since the Monmouth Oaks back on July the 29th. Just think you could do better than settling for that short price here.
Yeah, this is a tough race. I was kind of looking at comparative too, cutting back in distance. I could see it going a lot of different ways, so I don't fault you for fading the morning line favorite here.
Yeah, comparative's another one. Darin mentioned 8 Broke, and I think both 8 Broke and comparative both look good if they're ready to roll off the layoff, which is a definite possibility considering they're trained by Brad Cox and Linda Rice. So, yeah, I think once again, that performance is gonna, like Darin mentioned, she's just gonna get bet off the board. But somebody had to be second in that 6-horse field at Keeneland, and a colt has definitely burned a lot of money. I think I was looking at it. She's lost at least her last couple of starts. She's lost twice from her last 4 starts at odds on. So that's probably a pretty good fade.
So my fade might be bold. I'm going with the Kentucky Oaks prep, the Demoiselle at 1 1/8, and I am fading a Brad Cox filly, which isn't necessarily a good idea these days, but I have my reasons. I am fading number 1, Mahima, at 4 to 5. This horse has won by a combined 13 lengths, is unbeaten from 2 starts, but has raced at sprint distances, trying 2 turns for the first time, and going all the way to 9 furlongs, has not raced farther than 7. And I just think 4 to 5 is too short a price for a 2-year-old who has never raced 2 turns, shipping to Aqueduct for the first time. And I could make arguments for a couple other horses in this field. Not to mention, Todd Pletcher has dominated the Demoiselle. He's won the last 4 editions and 9 overall. He does have a long shot in this field in Carmen's Candy Jar. Irad Ortiz Jr. is sticking with that horse, opted for that horse over the 10 Ballerina de Oro, who I think actually looks pretty interesting for Chad Brown, has Dylan Davis aboard. And I'm just going to try to beat Mahima. I don't think every single Brad Cox filly is going to be a star on the Kentucky Oaks Trail. So I am fading that horse at that short of a price.
I thought that these first out winners, Michelle for Brittany Russell and Mott's horse, Beauty Reigns, the Mischief filly. I thought they both looked like they were her main rivals. I am a little bit concerned that she's a candidate just to overwhelm them with her talent. This 1 1/8 distance for 2-year-olds isn't the same as going 1 1/8 down the road. These 2-year-olds sometimes just can get a route distance just based on talent alone early in their career. And there's certainly been some top class sprinters who have won the Demoiselle in the past. Like I actually went back and looked at it. Both Lake Avenue and Lewis Bay have won in the last decade, and they both were wound up being confirmed graded sprint types. So Mahima is a bold fade, I think. She's on the morning line and could be even shorter than her 4 to 5 price.
Yeah. Well, are you gonna bet her to win if she's 3 to 5?
I'm not going to bet her to win, but
yeah.
I'm not saying to include her in the
I don't think
but...
she's. Yeah, I mean, look, she's by Munnings, so there definitely is a little bit of sprint on the top side of her pedigree. Excuse me, but she's out of a Tapit mare who was a stakes winner. Both siblings are winners. They've won going a little bit of ground, and I mean, Brad Cox had to send this filly somewhere because he had Eclatant and Good Cheer. And the other and Immersive in the Breeders' Cup, so it was just kind of like, well, you got to find a race for her somewhere. So I think that's why she's shipping here to try to just keep some of these fillies separated for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, if she loses, I'm going to be very surprised.
We'll see. I might embarrass myself here, and she might
No
win by
embarrassment. No
6 lengths.
embarrassment.
No, I
I
mean
But
you're
I mean, I
taking
don't
on
mind
the
the
big
price.
favorite. Yeah.
Let's move on though and talk about some promos. So, Dan, what is going on at TwinSpires?
Yeah, a lot going on. TwinSpires is actually the title sponsor of the Cigar Mile this weekend at Aqueducts, presented by TwinSpires.com. So we've got a couple of offers there. We've got a nice $5,000 pick five, hit it and split it on that card, the late pick five. So be sure to get involved with that. It ends, I believe, with the Cigar Mile, so it's a great sequence, a fun one. It includes Ashley's fade, so you could really maybe the lone person to take this thing down if you could beat Mahima in the spot. But great offer there. We also have the Cigar Mile money back on the Cigar Mile itself, $10 back if your horse runs second. So just a little extra insurance there, and it really is a great betting race. And we'll dive into that a little bit further when we get to our what else. But a couple of offers around the Cigar Mile. Then, of course, Turfway Park is underway. We've got the money back offer there as well. $10 money back on Turfway. We listed selected races, but it's going to be pretty expansive. We either have 4 or 5 races coming up on each of the nights this weekend. Friday and Saturday night is when this offer takes place. And we'll try to get as many races into it as the budget allows throughout the month of December. So definitely three great promos coming up. And, of course, on the tournament side, we have a KDBC qualifier coming up on Saturday this particular weekend. And we are a little bit more than a week away from the Turfway Handicapping Championship, in which we are seeding or adding $10,000 to the prize pool. So we're not taking that $10,000 out of the registration fees. That's money that TwinSpires is throwing into the contest on top of whatever is generated by the registrations in the prize pool. So you know it's at least $10,000. And we are going to be awarding 1 Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge seat for every 10 players. There are feeders and qualifiers going on for the next 9 days, 10 days as well. So great opportunities to get involved. That's a fantastic night of racing, too. It's their synthetic championships. I think $1 million over 4 stakes races. So that's going to be a great night of action.
You mentioned the $10 money back offer for the Cigar Mile. Darren, I know you're going to be watching that this weekend. So tell us about the Cigar Mile.
Yeah, I would have gone to it, too, if I wasn't coaching basketball on Saturday. But, yeah, I mean, this is just a fantastic race. I honestly looked at this race for an extended period of time as I do the expert picks for Saturday. You can make a legitimate case for 9 or 10 of the horses. I mean, like, I know there's a couple of horses that are 30 to 1 on the morning line, but like even Nelson Avenue is coming into this race off of what I thought was a pretty impressive second place effort behind Coastal Mission. And that was after a couple of nice wins, most recently in Allowance Company. I mean, he's 30 to 1 in here. You know, Repo Rocks is up there at 30 to 1 as well. He's coming out of a decent effort with second behind Coastal Mission in each of the last couple of starts. So, yeah, I mean, I still have not made a selection here. I just thought, you know, from top to bottom, you could make a case for, you got horses coming out of the Breeders' Cup. You've got Locked, who's on the comeback trail, who's looked pretty good. You have Mulligan in here, who's coming out of a tough trip in the Breeders' Cup. I just thought there were so many different ways to go. I mean, Vinsanity would cause insanity if he won this race,
Yeah.
but just for anybody else, I thought was a legitimate threat to get involved here. I thought it was a fantastic race.
Yeah, this one's tough.
I thought Mulligan, he's a slight morning line favorite. We'll see if he's actually favored, but he's going to take money. It was a weird trip for him in the Breeders' Cup Sprint because I thought he broke alertly, then he dropped back. I mean, he was not happy being off the pace that day. And then he came with a really good run to be third. He's never won at 6 furlongs, so he's more of a 7 furlong. I think I'm type that I think the 1-turn mile is going to hit him right in the eyes. And then post-time, absolutely got just shuffled to the back of the pack in the dirt mile early and came with an enormous run to be second to Full Seriano. So it's interesting. We got a couple horses from Breeders' I thought troubled, or less than favorable trips that ran well and placed in Breeders' Cup events in there, as well as Locked, who will be making a second start back for Pletcher, and Senor Buscador, who has got a ton of class, and of course Bookham Dano. You 100% can't dismiss his win chances. I agree with Darren. It's just a fantastic Cigar Mile handicap.
Yeah, and Senor Buscador was actually second in this race last year, and that's when he started to get really good before he narrowly was defeated in the Pegasus World Cup Invitational and then went on to win the Saudi Cup. And he's kind of gone off form again since then. Didn't run badly in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Maybe he was able to pass some tiring rivals due to that pretty quick pace. But the only horse that really closed in that race was the winner, Sierra Leone. Forever Young was up close. Fierceness was up close. So I thought Senor Buscador ran fine. He's cutting back to the mile. If he gets an honest setup, I think he's live in here as well. It really is a spectacular betting race.
Yeah, it's hard. It's, I'm trying to figure out, do I think it's someone that comes off the pace? Does it set up for a late closer? Like, really, that's how I think I'm going to have to handicap it, is what pace scenario do I see? Do you think it's going to be a hot pace?
Well, I mean, Nelson Avenue is definitely going to be aggressive. Repo Rocks is always a horse that typically is forward. Mulligan, I mean, he has to go. He has to go. Locked has been up and on the pace in a couple of spots. Pipeline, I know, is a horse that likes to go forward, even though he's been racing typically at longer races, longer distances than this. So there is enough pace on paper that could set things up. Maybe Coastal Mission is the now horse and he falls into another good trip. I don't know. It's like I said, it is a head scratcher of a race.
And I also will say, I don't know, Ashley, if there's just any true, post time, I guess. But even he's been able to race closer. So I'm not exactly anticipating anybody being any off the pace types, because if the pace is moderate, they could just sit closer.
Yeah. We'll see what happens, but let's move over to Oaklawn. So, James, what are you watching for there?
I'm going to be watching to see Happy is a choice. He tops. He's the 2-1 morning line favorite in Saturday's Ring the Bell Stakes at 6 furlongs. And this is a horse, Happy is a choice, who comes off, I thought it was a really nice win. Scully was the even money favorite in the Louisville Thoroughbred Society Stakes in September at Churchill. And you can see he's loose on the lead. Had a big chance to finally get another stakes win and get a stakes win under his belt away from Oaklawn Park. But Happy is a choice, really close determinedly to nail him by a head on the wire. And he's now won 2 of his last 3 starts. The lone setback in there was a third in the Jeff Hilton in an Ellis Park stake race, where I didn't think he got the right trip that day. His numbers are progressing. He's earned 99 and 102 Bristnet speed ratings in 2 of his last in both wins, and he's earned these century topping triple-digit Bristnet late pace ratings in his last 3 starts. That's always a sign of a horse that's progressing. I always like to say, Arrogate. Until he got beat in the San Diego, he had never turned in a race in his career where he didn't get a triple-digit late pace number. So, I like seeing these numbers go up for Happy as a choice. He's going to be a 5-year-old next year, but I think he still has upside for John Ortiz and the potential to develop into a top sprinter. And we'll see if he can close the year on a good note in the Ring the Bell Stakes.
You called that win. He was a pretty big long shot in the Louisville Thoroughbred Society.
Yeah, well, I bet him, that race he had won 3 back was I thought a stakes quality allowance, listed stakes perhaps, quality allowance at Churchill in late June. And he just crushed them that day. And I was there that day and I was really impressed. And I bet him in the Jeff Hilton, and it doesn't reflect it on the PP line, but he did not get he was not happy early, and I don't think he fired his best effort. So I thought he could rebound, but let's face it. Skelly was going to be a tough customer in there, and he ran a big race too. He's a horse that was competing in entry level allowances just back in the spring, and I still think he has like I said, he can continue to develop and get better and better moving forward.
He's certainly worthy of that 2-1 morning line price. And I will talk about the other stake at Oaklawn on Friday opening day. And I've got a really short price for you. It's even money for Innovator, who's interestingly the only maiden in this very small field. And Innovator, if you were watching the debut of Barnes, almost beat Barnes at Churchill Downs on November 27th. Barnes, of course, looked very green in his debut, but just beat him by a head at the wire. It was a very interesting race to watch. But if you're playing the Advent Stakes, I think it's a chance to play against, this maiden that's making a 6th career start for Dwayne Lucas. And I think I would go with one of the Steve Asmussen runners. You've got number 2, 3 Echoes, or number 5, or I'm not number 4, Perfect Magic, who just won at third asking when trying dirt for the first time. Eric Asmussen aboard. You're getting a pretty good price at 5-1. So, it's, again, a small field. We'll see what happens with the very small field, but also interested to see Innovator coming back pretty quickly, but had a really good Bristnet speed figure in that loss to Barnes. So that'll be the big stakes race to watch on Friday at Oaklawn.
Lucas isn't afraid to run him. He ran Just Steel 4 times last year before the Derby.
Yeah.
And, are there any other big favorites this weekend you want to pick against Ashley?
I'll probably find another one somewhere.
All right.
I'll tell you one that I'll pick against, being the lowest price individual horse in the Derby Future wager. If anybody wagered on Barnes at 13-1 last weekend, just give me half your money instead, and you could save the other half. I mean, how anybody takes a horse at 13-1 5 months before the Derby off of one lifetime win where he got up by a nose like that? It just amazes me how much.
He was all over the track. I mean, he was green, but I mean, he's still got a lot of.
But it just amazes me how much, it being Bob Baffert and his first race back at Churchill, and he wins, and it's getting a lot of publicity and the video of how the horse won, and all of a sudden the horse is the lowest price over Breeders' Cup Juvenile winners and East Avenue and winners of the Kentucky Jockey Club. It astounds me how people wager their money on that 5 months before the Derby. And they accept the horse at 13-1. I wouldn't bet on a horse less than 75-1 5 months before.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was kind of an ugly debut for Barnes, but I'm sure he will get much better, especially as a 3-year-old.
Innovator will give a read though on him a little bit because, like he said, I mean that was his best start yet, and we'll see if he can keep, if he can run back, carry it forward.
Yeah, well, that's all the time we have today for the TwinSpires jury. We'll be back next Thursday with more best bets and fades, and good luck to all of you all fading heavy favorites this weekend.
When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With TwinSpires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with TwinSpires. And now you can race to victory with TwinSpires tournaments.